Hey, my dear fellow monkeys. This is a video in the This Week in Science series. I have collected three articles for this week. Two of them are not necessarily research articles, and the other one brings about different evidence for a particular disease. First one is something that relates to both science and politics. In the last week, there's been a controversy surrounding National Institute of Health because of the fact that there have been certain groups that have been trying to limit fetal tissue research and have asked for the ouster of Dr. Francis Collins, the head of NIH. The reason why these groups are asking for Dr. Collins to be removed is because of the fact that he made a claim last week that fetal tissue research is both scientifically and ethically justified. They are considered kind of like the gold standard of research for developing therapies for different diseases. The reason for this upheaval might be because of two reasons. One is that Dr. He Jiankui from China, who produced or who claims to have produced gene-edited babies, and people in the US or the authorities in US are worried that might happen in the US also. This might be the reaction of that news, or it might have been the fact that this has been a contentious issue in the US for a long time. You might remember how the Bush administration put a hold on stem cell research in the US when Bush was in power. When this was being investigated, two scientists from Virginia, from a research institute, claimed that fetal tissue research is not necessary and other alternatives like adult stem cells, induced pluripotent stem cells, and organoids can be used for development of therapies for different diseases like HIV or cancer, for which currently fetal tissue is being used. Briefly, what I mean by fetal tissue research is that the fetuses that have been obtained from selective abortions are used as donors of stem cells that can be engrafted onto mouse embryo to develop a humanized model of a mouse. That is what I mean when I say fetal tissue research. These two scientists that I told earlier testified before Congress saying that there are alternative methods by citing a study, but the authors of the study claimed that the results of their study has been misinterpreted by these two people who testified before Congress, saying that they used umbilical cord blood to develop immune system for mice that they specifically developed for studying a disease that they were studying in the lab, and that cannot be generalized for everything. They strongly proposed that fetal tissue research necessarily has to go on, and these two are just misinterpreting their study. To take care of this problem and to come to a compromise, NIH is also using 1/5 of its research funding for fetal tissue research to develop alternatives to this. So $100 million have been allocated for human fetal tissue research. Because of these kinds of problems, NIH has started to use $20 million to develop alternatives. The consensus among fetal tissue researchers is that this is the gold standard for research on developing new therapies. And a workshop that was conducted last week by NIH concluded that human fetal tissue is the gold standard for research to develop therapeutic models, and any other model or any other alternate that is being developed will have to be tested against this gold standard before it becomes general practice. The reason why these experts claim that humanized immune system models that are used in research are important is because of the fact that the immune cells that have been derived from fetal tissue have a higher rate of engraftment into the mouse embryo and higher rate of differentiation into different immune cells. They also have a longer survival and function of these cells to test the effects of new drugs on the immune system of mice that are similar to human beings. The second one is more of an opinion article. A report was published in Science Translational Medicine in 2008 claiming that there is a big chasm between basic biomedical research and medicine that is actually used in the bedside. Taking that into consideration, we are also having many doubts by the general public on basic biomedical research and the amount of money that is being funded for basic biomedical research, because the output is not necessarily translated to people for whom these things are being developed. A major reason a few years back was called the Valley of Death, wherein phase 2 trials, which involved recruiting hundreds of thousands of people to test the efficacy at a larger scale of a particular drug, was not possible because of the fact that many researchers didn't have enough funding to carry out the clinical trial. The other problem is that the regulation of vaccines or any other drugs requires an extensive licensing process. It involves multiple layers of scrutiny. The phase 2 trials are conducted on a few hundred to 1,000 people, which again requires higher grant money to be conducted. Phase 3 trials have to be conducted in tens of thousands of people. And mostly vaccines that are being developed for low and middle income countries will have to be done in those countries, which involves an additional cost of training people to administer those vaccines and to collect follow-up information from these people who have been vaccinated. So phase 3 trials include that. In addition, companies that are developing vaccines will have to do something called post-intervention safety assessment of the vaccine before getting a green light from the WHO to roll it out to larger populations as in at a continental or national level. In addition, there is also the manufacturing cost between the approval from the WHO to rolling it out to larger populations, because there has to be a manufacturing unit that has to be set up to develop these vaccines at a larger scale. An example of this would be a vaccine that was developed for malaria 20 years back called RTSS vaccine. It just passed phase 2 trials in 2009 and phase 3 trials have just started. The cost for doing that was around $200 million. The amount of money that has been spent since the beginning of phase 3 trials and which is near completion, it has cost around $700 million, and experts predict that it might reach $1 billion before it is actually rolled out to the larger population. This again begs the question, what happens to other candidates that are being developed? If it is successful, then who is going to bear the cost for other candidates that have been developed? If it doesn't work out, $1 billion goes to waste, and another $1 billion has to be developed, spent for another candidate. Money is a major problem in this sector, either vaccine development or. But thanks to certain philanthropic and government organizations that are actually looking to increase the output from phase 2 clinical trials, or to at least bridge the value of death for many of these candidates. To address this issue of people not having access to these vaccines, especially in low and middle income countries where it is in dire need, there has to be a multidisciplinary approach from philanthropic organizations, pharma companies, government, some non-governmental organizations and WHO to come up with an action plan so that each of these key players plays a committed role towards progressing the development of vaccine at a much faster rate so that it is accessible for people who are in dire need of the vaccines. The reason why many pharma companies are not venturing into this risky investment is because of the fact that the return that they will get on this investment is not predictable. Because a candidate that they are developing might go through until phase 3 and it might fail in phase 4 trials, during which they might lose hundreds of millions of dollars while developing that. So they are sticking to manufacturing vaccines that have already been tested in developed countries. The other problem is the regulation, which necessitates a longer time period for assessment of safety of these vaccines or for drugs that are being developed. So if you're able to come up with a different method of regulation which involves a shorter time period, then the vaccines can be rolled out to populations in need of these vaccines at a much faster rate. The third one is an interesting type of illness that has been found in East Africa, in countries like Sudan and Uganda. It's called nodding syndrome. Nodding syndrome is prevalent among young kids who have epilepsy-like seizures and have their heads nodding to their chest the cognitive capacities start declining at a rapid rate, and they eventually die. When postmortem analysis of their brains was conducted, and neuroimaging was done to see what is going on in the brain, a group from University of Toronto published in the journal Acta Neuropathologica saying that the brains of these kids contain neurofibrillary tangles characteristic of tau pathology, like Alzheimer's disease. And they claimed that Nodding syndrome is a tau pathology, unlike the previously held notion that it is caused by an endemic parasite that is present in East Africa, which causes the seizures. And they claim that since tau deposition is found here in these young kids, there must be something else that is triggering tau pathology rather than age. A group from University of Toronto, Canada published a study in the journal Acta Neuropathologica claiming that the images of these kids' brains show that they have neurofibrillary tangles similar to tau pathologies like Alzheimer's disease. The obvious conclusion that the researchers made is that since tau pathology is an age-dependent thing and it is not happening here in this case, there is something else that is triggering the tau pathology. A few scientists are skeptical about this, and a scientist from Belgium who has been studying Nodding syndrome for a while claims that there is unpublished data from this lab from 7 other children who died of Nodding syndrome, but were given better care and better treatment, and the number of neurofibrillary tangles are much smaller than the number of neurofibrillary tangles that have been observed in the previous study that I mentioned. The conclusion that the scientist from Belgium makes is that tau pathology is not the cause of seizures, but it is a consequence of seizures. Another theory is that the parasite is just a bystander and infects these people opportunistically when they have either tau pathology or seizures, or both. So this is a puzzle that scientists are still trying to solve, and the motivating factor here is that understanding this tau pathology here in this case helps us understand neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease, and to develop our understanding even better. I have linked all the sources down in the description below. You can take a look at them. Leave a like if you like the video, share this video with your friends and family, and subscribe to my channel if you like my content. I've been Kaushik from The Thinking Monkey, and I'll see you all next time. Out.